I faced something I never thought I'd have to defend in public, the right for my own service dog to sit in the seat I paid for. And the way it all unraveled, the way one woman turned a quiet boarding process into a circus, it still makes my chest tighten when I think about it. It didn't start with shouting. It never does. It started with little things, a shift in the air. That sense you get when someone's eyes lock on you and you just know they're about to make you their problem. It was early afternoon, O'Hare Airport, Gate C-17. The boarding area was the usual mess of rolling suitcases, people jockeying for power outlets, and the overhead speaker crackling with gate changes no one could understand. I was tired but calm. Buck, my golden retriever, lay stretched at my feet like a piece of living luggage, his vest bright red with white block letters, "Service dog, do not pet." His head rested on his paws, eyes half shut but ears flicking at every announcement. He's trained to be alert even when he looks asleep. My name's Cole, former service member, now just a man with more scars inside than out. Buck isn't a pet. He's my lifeline. I live with panic disorder that comes at me like a thief in the dark, no warning, no mercy. Buck grounds me, presses against me, reminds me that I'm here, breathing, alive. That day, he had his own boarding pass. Seat 14B, right next to mine, and 14A I paid for both, like anyone would for 2 passengers. When the gate agent called pre-boarding for passengers needing extra time, I stood, adjusted my cap, and gave Buck the quiet signal we've rehearsed hundreds of times. His body rose in one smooth, obedient motion. No pulling, no hesitation. Just a quiet partner ready to board. The jet bridge smelled of metal and coffee, always does. I could hear the hollow echo of rolling bags ahead, the squeak of rubber on aluminum flooring. Buck's nails tapped in rhythm with my boots. The sound steadied me. Inside the plane, the cabin lights were dimmed just slightly, that pre-flight hum of air conditioning filling the background. We moved slowly to row 14, passengers already lifting bags into the overheads. I slid into my window seat, Buck curling neatly into 14B like he'd practiced for this role his whole life. He tucks himself into a perfect donut, chin on his paws, not a sound. The patch on his vest caught the light, "Do not distract," working. For a moment everything was fine. A boy across the aisle tugged his mother's sleeve. "Mom, red vest means working, right?" She smiled, nodded. "Right, we look but we don't touch." Even an 8-year-old got it. An older man in a Cubs cap leaned into the aisle, gave me a grin. "Buddy, I wish I had that kind of focus. Last time we hit bumps, I hugged a stranger." His laugh was dry, genuine. I smiled back. "Same rule applies," I said. "Do not pet." He chuckled. "Copy that." Boarding moved along with its usual chaos. The thud of carry-ons, the grunts of people trying to squeeze winter coats into overhead bins. The cabin filled with snippets of lives. A couple whispering about their hotel, a teenager blasting music too loud from earbuds, a flight attendant soothingly reminding passengers to step all the way into their row. Then I heard her before I saw her. A voice sharp enough to cut glass, high-pitched, nasal, impatient. It carried down the aisle like a warning siren. She appeared, a woman balancing a toddler on one hip, dragging a purse the size of a car seat with her free hand. Her hair was perfect, not a strand out of place, her heels clicking on the carpet like she owned the plane. And the look on her face, the kind of look that says rules bend for me. "Karen." She stopped cold at row 14. Her eyes fell on Buck, and I swear the cabin temperature dropped 10 degrees. She didn't ask, she didn't smile. She pointed a manicured nail like an accusation. "What is that?" The flight attendant nearest us, a young woman with a name tag that read Chloe, flinched. "That's a service animal, ma'am." Karen's laugh was sharp, incredulous. "I don't care what it is, it's in my child's seat." Her words punched the air. People turned their heads, the aisle slowed. I kept my voice level, calm, the way you do when you're defusing a bomb or coaxing a skittish deer. "Excuse me, this is actually his seat. I purchased it for him." I held up my boarding passes, 14A, 14B, both with my name. Chloe nodded quickly, relief flashing across her face that I had proof. But Karen didn't even glance at the tickets. She sniffed, shifting her toddler higher on her hip. "I'm not holding him for 3 hours," she snapped. "He needs a seat. That dog can sit on the floor." There it was, that word, Dog said like an insult, said like my partner, my lifeline, was less than luggage. My jaw tightened. I breathed once through my nose. No, ma'am, he can't. He's too large to be on the floor without blocking the aisle. That's against FAA regulations. That's why I bought him a seat. Her expression twisted like I'd just spoken a foreign language. FAA meant nothing to her. Rules meant nothing. She stepped forward, shifting as if to lower her son directly onto Buck's back. I moved without thinking, just a subtle shift, my leg edging into the space, a quiet shield. Buck didn't flinch. He simply lifted one paw, pressed it lightly against my shin. His trained block, his way of saying, "I've got you, you've got me." The man in the Cubs cap leaned again. "Ma'am," he said, his voice patient but firm, "that dog's more polite than most people. He paid for it." A teenage girl behind us whispered into her phone, recording, "He's famous now." Karen's eyes narrowed. Her toddler squirmed, starting to fuss. She looked from Buck to me to Chloe, and her voice pitched higher. "This is unacceptable. Are you going to let this man endanger my child with this animal?" She was staging a play, and the rest of us had become unwilling extras. The aisle filled with whispers, the size of passengers who just wanted to sit down and take off. The weight of 100 eyes pressed against my shoulders. Chloe shifted nervously, hand hovering over her radio. She murmured something about getting a lead attendant. Karen seized the weakness, pouncing. "Oh, please, you're really going to prioritize a dog over a child?" Her voice rose, sharp enough to echo. She held her toddler higher, as though presenting him to the jury she believed she had. The plane went quiet in that tense way, the hush before a storm breaks. And I realized this wasn't just a confrontation. This was a battle over truth, dignity, and the right to exist with the partner who kept me whole. I didn't know then how far she would take it. I didn't know she'd push every button, try every tactic, even faking medical emergencies, even grabbing Buck's vest with her own hand. But in that moment, as her words cut the air and Chloe's radio crackled faintly in the background, I knew one thing with absolute certainty. This wasn't going to end with her sitting down quietly. This was just the opening act. And the curtain had only just risen. The thing about planes is, you can feel tension ripple through the cabin like static before a thunderstorm. One person raises their voice, and the air gets thicker. People stop shoving bags into bins and start leaning into the aisle, eyes narrowed, ears tilted toward the drama. That's exactly what happened after Karen made her stand. She had planted her flag in row 14, and the rest of us were just unwilling witnesses. Her son whimpered against her shoulder, tired and restless, and the sound only sharpened her fury. "This is ridiculous," she cried, her voice rising high enough to rattle the overhead panels. "I am a mother. My child needs a seat more than a dog does." Every word was a weapon, meant to wound me, to strip Buck down to something lesser. Chloe, the young flight attendant, tried again. Her voice was calm but shaky, like porcelain about to crack. "Ma'am, your ticket is for 14C, that's your seat. His dog, this service animal, has a purchase ticket for 14B, we can't reassign it." But logic wasn't welcome here. Karen's face flushed red, the kind of red you only see on hydrants and warning lights. She clutched her child tighter, rocking him for effect. The aisle behind her clogged with passengers sighing, whispering, shaking their heads. The whole plane seemed to lean toward the conflict, restless and weary. That's when she changed tactics. Her voice dropped, softened, as if she were suddenly frail. She lifted one hand to her chest, staggering slightly like she was in a bad stage play. I'm allergic," she gasped. "I can't breathe. My throat is closing." It was a performance, and the thing about performances is some people believe them. Passengers in the next row looked alarmed. A woman across from us fumbled in her bag, pulling out an EpiPen. "If it's serious, you need to move," she said sharply. "That's what I do. Move first, jab second." But Karen didn't move. She didn't even reach for water. She just clutched her chest and let her voice quiver. "I shouldn't have to move," she wheezed. "That dog shouldn't even be here." The man in the Cubs cap muttered under his breath, "Funny, your lungs work fine when you're yelling." I stayed silent, but inside I felt heat rising. She wasn't just trying to take a seat. She was trying to rewrite reality to turn my partner into a threat. Then Maria arrived. I noticed her before I heard her. Mid-40s, hair pinned back tight, posture calm and steady in the chaos. Her name tag gleamed, Maria, lead flight attendant. She scanned the scene in one long, practiced glance, Karen red-faced, clutching her son like a prop, me quiet with Buck curled at my side, the aisle jammed with restless passengers. Maria didn't sigh, didn't frown. She just smiled the kind of smile that says I've seen worse, and I'll see worse again. "Ma'am," she said smoothly, "if you're experiencing an allergy, our policy is to offer you a new seat away from the animal. We have one available in row 18. It's identical to this one." It was perfect, it was fair. But Karen's eyes flashed. The victim act vanished like smoke. She snapped upright, voice sharp again. "No, I paid for this seat. I'm not moving. That dog should move. That man should move." There it was, not about safety, not about allergies, not even about her child. It was about winning, about bending the world to her will. Maria's smile hardened by the smallest degree. "Ma'am, that's not possible. This passenger has purchased both 14A and 14B. We can accommodate your allergy by moving you to row 18. Otherwise, you'll need to remain in your assigned seat." But Karen didn't sit. She shifted, angling as if to wedge herself into the space between me and Buck, her child dangling precariously. My hand tightened on the armrest. Buck lifted his head, eyes flicking to me, calm but ready. The aisle behind her groaned as one. The jet bridge door was still open. We were supposed to be taxiing already. But here we sat, held hostage by one woman's refusal to accept reason. The chime sounded from the front galley. Chloe mouthed the word, "late." And then she escalated again. The beverage cart rattled free of the galley, rolling down the aisle with that familiar clink of glass bottles. Maria guided it, professional, unflappable. But Karen? She seized the moment. She stood squarely in the aisle, toddler on her hip, purse spilling over her arm, and began rummaging noisily. Maria stopped the cart a few feet away. "Ma'am, you'll need to return to your seat so we can begin service." Karen didn't even glance up. "Oh, I just need to change my son's diaper. It'll only take a minute." The cabin stilled, a diaper in the aisle. Maria kept her tone polite but firm. "Ma'am, the lavatory is equipped with a changing table. It's safer there." Karen shook her head dramatically. "Oh no, those bathrooms are filthy, unsafe. My son could fall, I'll just do it here." She bent as though preparing to spread a blanket right there in the narrow walkway. The man 2 rows back raised his hand, his voice cracked with urgency. I really need the restroom." Karen's head snapped up, eyes blazing. "So use it." He pointed past her. "That's the idea." Passengers snickered. Maria didn't. Her voice stayed level. "Ma'am, blocking the aisle is a safety hazard. I need you to return to your seat now." But Karen's tone pitched up again, shrill and sharp. "Are you telling me I can't take care of my child? Is this airline anti-mother? This is abuse." The baby, stirred by the noise, began to wail. The sound filled the cabin, pressing against the walls. And then the captain's voice cut through the chaos. Calm, crisp, no nonsense. "Flight attendants, please report status of cabin service." Maria picked up the handset. "Flight deck, this is Maria. Cabin service delayed. Passenger obstructing aisle." Her voice carried. Everyone heard. Karen heard. Her eyes widened, then narrowed. She crossed her arms defiantly, rocking her child harder, chin lifting. She wasn't intimidated. She thought she'd called in reinforcements. The captain had heard enough. Minutes later, Maria disappeared to the flight deck. When she returned, she wasn't alone. The man who followed her down the aisle wore gold stripes on his shoulders and calm authority in every step. Captain Jack Rios. I knew him. Years ago, different units, same service branch. He was steady back then, steady now. He had the look of a man who lived by procedure, who treated rules like lifelines. The cabin went silent as he stopped at our row. He didn't glance at me first, didn't glance at Buck. He looked straight at Karen, and in his hand he carried a folded paper. "Good afternoon," he said, his voice steady but heavy with command. I am Captain Rios. I understand there's a dispute over seating. Karen straightened, victorious. Yes, finally, this man's dog is in my child's seat. Jack raised a hand, cutting her off without raising his tone. He unfolded the paper. Per airline policy and federal regulations, a paid seat is the property of the ticket holder for the duration of the flight. Mr. Mercer has purchased seats 14A and 14B. They are not available. Karen sputtered, her lips parting. But Jack continued without pause. Service animals are federally protected. If a ticket has been purchased, they may occupy a seat. That is non-negotiable. The cabin seemed to exhale. Finally, a voice of authority. But Karen wasn't finished. She reached again for the old script, tears springing as if on command. But my allergy, he's poisoning me with that dog, and you, she jabbed a finger at Jack, you're protecting him because you know him. Jack's expression didn't flicker. His voice dropped a degree colder. Ma'am, you were offered an equivalent seat in row 18 to accommodate your stated allergy. You refused. We have followed policy. This discussion is closed. You will return to your seat immediately. The quiet in the cabin grew heavier. Karen shook her head, words spilling, louder, more frantic. This is insane. I'm being harassed, all because of this stupid dog. And then she did it. Her hand darted forward, fast and reckless. Fingers wrapped around the rigid handle of Buck's vest. She yanked hard. Buck jolted awake with a startled yelp. His eyes flew to mine, wide, confused, betrayed. He hadn't snapped, hadn't growled. Just sat there, shaking from the sudden violence. But for me, the world froze. Because in that instant, Karen crossed the line from nuisance to danger. And the captain's face turned to stone. That, he said, each word like ice breaking, was physical interference with a service animal. You are now a security risk. The cabin gasped as one. The flight was no longer about takeoff, it was about her. And we all knew something irreversible had just begun. The second her hand closed on Buck's vest, time slowed. His startled yelp cracked the air, a sound so innocent yet so wrong in that setting. A dog trained to withstand fireworks, crowds, chaos, shaken by the reckless hand of one angry woman. His eyes darted to mine, wide and questioning, as if to ask, why would someone do that? The cabin went dead silent. No rustling bags, no clinking cups, just the hum of the engines and the sharp echo of what she'd done. And then Captain Rios's voice, low and cold as steel. That was physical interference with a service animal. You are now a security risk. The words cut like a blade. The passengers around us gasped, whispers hissing through the rows like wind in dry grass. The man in the Cub's cap let out a low whistle, shaking his head. A woman behind me muttered, "Oh, she's done." Maria lifted her radio, her hands steady. Flight deck, passenger interference confirmed, request return to gate. The intercom crackled, Roger returning. The engines shifted. The plane, which had been seconds from takeoff, slowed. We weren't going anywhere, not yet. The next 10 minutes were some of the quietest of my life. Karen sat rigid, her arms crossed, her child fussing in her lap. For the first time, she said nothing. No shouts, no gasps, no accusations, just silence. The weight of what she'd done seemed to sink in, her face pale, her jaw clenched. Passengers around us didn't even bother hiding their relief, shoulders unclenched, eyes rolled. Some smirked openly at her sudden quiet. The cabin, though tense, felt like it had shifted, like everyone had silently agreed she'd gone too far. Buck pressed his head into my thigh, trembling slightly. I stroked his fur, whispering, "Good boy, you did nothing wrong." His body relaxed slowly, but his eyes stayed on me, alert, protective. The wheels kissed the tarmac again. The plane taxied back toward the terminal, engines humming low. The captain's voice came over the PA, calm, professional, betraying nothing. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've had a minor issue on board that requires us to return briefly to the gate. We appreciate your patience. We'll be on our way shortly." No details, just the facts, but everyone knew. The jet bridge reconnected with a hollow, metallic thud. A moment later, 2 uniformed airport police officers boarded. Their footsteps echoed down the aisle, slow, deliberate. Karen shrank into her seat as they approached. She tried for indignation, lifting her phone like a shield. "I'm going live," she hissed. One officer gently lowered the device. His voice was firm but polite. "Not on the jet bridge, ma'am. Please gather your belongings and come with us." She sputtered, eyes darting to the passengers watching. "This is abuse. Everyone's against me. You'll all regret this." But the words rang hollow. No one answered. Not a single passenger rose to defend her. She packed her things in a daze, fumbling, muttering under her breath. Her child had fallen asleep against her shoulder, oblivious to the storm. And then came the longest walk in aviation. The walk of shame down a narrow aisle lined with 100 pairs of eyes. She kept her gaze low, lips pressed tight, but people saw. Row 13. A grandmother with silver hair patted her purse and whispered just loud enough, "Should have packed manners." Row 12, the Cubs cap man shook his head slowly. "MVP," he muttered, pointing 2 fingers at Buck, who wagged his tail once as if in salute. Some passengers clapped softly, others just smirked. A teenager lifted her phone, whispering, "Oh my God, this is going viral." Karen didn't meet my eyes as she passed. Not once. She just walked, stiff, carrying the heavy weight of 100 silent verdicts. The officers guided her down the jet bridge. The cabin door sealed behind them with a heavy click. And then the applause came. Scattered at first, then growing, claps, cheers, even a whistle. The sound wasn't loud, but it was enough. Enough to break the tension, enough to let us all breathe again. Maria passed back down the aisle, her smile weary but genuine. "Thank you for your patience, everyone. We'll be departing shortly." I leaned back, exhaling for the first time in what felt like hours. Buck laid his head back on my knee, his breathing steady again. I scratched behind his ears. "Good boy," I whispered. He sneezed till thumping once against the seat. We weren't finished, not really. But for that moment, it felt like justice had been done. Captain Rios stopped briefly at my row, hat tucked under his arm. "You and your partner okay, Cole?" I nodded. "We're fine. Thanks for handling it by the book." "Policy is policy," he said, his voice softening. "It keeps everyone safe." He gave Buck a small nod. He did his job. As the plane pushed back again, the safety demonstration played a second time. Passengers chuckled nervously at the déjà vu. The air felt lighter, freer. For the first time since boarding, I believed we might actually get where we were going. But the truth, the story wasn't over. Because in today's world, nothing stays on a plane. Not when a dozen cell phones are pointed, recording, uploading. We took off smoothly the second time. The engines roared, the cabin rattled, the ground fell away. Passengers exhaled, some even laughed. The tension had cracked. I pressed my forehead against the window, watching the grid of Chicago shrink below. Buck's warmth anchored me, his steady weight on my leg reminding me I was safe. But when we landed in Denver 3 hours later, the storm hit harder than any turbulence. The moment I switched off airplane mode, my phone lit up like a fire alarm. Messages poured in. Dozens, then hundreds, notifications from every app I had. My brother's text sat at the top. "Dude, you're famous." I stared at the screen, my stomach sinking. Famous was never a good thing in a story like this. And as I scrolled through links, shaky videos, comment threads already spiraling out of control, I realized with a cold, sharp certainty. The plane had landed, but the battle had only just begun. When the wheels touched down in Denver, I thought the nightmare was over. Karen was off the plane, the cabin had clapped, and Buck was back to snoozing at my feet, blissfully unaware of how close we'd come to chaos spiraling out of control. But peace never lasts long in the digital age. The moment I switched my phone off airplane mode, it buzzed like a hornet nest kicked awake. Notifications stacked one on top of the other, vibrating so fast my hand went numb. Texts, missed calls, social media alerts. The first message I opened was from my brother Mark, short, direct, chilling. "Dude, you're famous." I frowned, scrolling. The next was from my Uncle Dan, always the family comedian. He'd sent me a link with the caption, Is this you? Did Buck get his own seat? Ata boy. The link was to a news article. The headline screamed across the screen. Airline Karen deplaned after attacking service dog. My stomach dropped. I clicked it open and there it was. Grainy cell phone footage from multiple angles stitched together, passengers, voices overlapping, shaky camera movements catching every detail. Karen pointing at Buck. Karen clutching her chest, gasping about allergies. Karen blocking the aisle, diaper bag swinging like a weapon. And finally, Karen's hand darting forward, grabbing Buck's vest. The video froze on that frame, her fingers curled around the handle meant for stability, not violence. Buck's startled yelp cut through the tinny audio. And then Captain Rios' icy voice, "You are now a security risk." I sat in my seat at the gate in Denver, phone heavy in my hand, Buck leaning against my leg, and I realized this wasn't just an ugly scene on a plane anymore. It was a story, a viral story. The comments poured faster than I could read them. Most were supportive. "Good boy, Buck. Captain Rios is a legend. Finally, a Karen gets what she deserves." But then came the others. "She's a mom, he's cruel. That dog should have been in cargo. Fake service dog, fraud." I felt the old familiar burn rising in my chest, the kind that makes my vision narrow, my heart pound like war drums. Buck shifted instantly, his nose nudging my hand, grounding me. But still, the anger flared. Not because people doubted me, I could take that, but because they doubted him, my partner, my lifeline, the one who kept me steady when the world tilted. And then I saw it. Her post. Karen hadn't wasted any time. The same woman escorted off my flight by police had already recast herself online as a martyr. On her Facebook page, screenshotted and shared across Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, she'd written a long, tear-stained diatribe. She claimed the airline had forced her to sit next to a snarling pit bull who had lunged at her baby. She claimed I was a large, threatening man who verbally abused her for being a mother. She claimed the captain was my buddy, protecting me as part of some conspiracy. And the worst part? She posted a blurry zoomed-in screenshot of Buck's face mid-yawn, circled his teeth in red, and wrote, "Look at the fangs on this vicious animal, should be put down." My throat went dry. That dog, my dog, the one who saved me from drowning in my own panic more times than I could count, reduced to a villain in her made-up play. I wanted to scream, to curse, to unload the raw fury boiling in my chest, but I didn't, because Buck pressed harder into me, reminding me of what mattered. Instead, I called my brother. He answered on the first ring. "I've seen it, Cole, don't do anything stupid." I can't let her get away with this. She's calling Buck a menace. She's lying about everything. Mark's voice was calm, surgical. He was a lawyer through and through. "Listen to me, you don't win these fights with fire. You win them with facts. Don't argue with her followers. Don't post angry rants. Facts. Cold, boring facts. That's your shield. That's your sword." My fists unclenched slowly. "So what do I do?" "You document, you request official records, you show receipts. You make it impossible for her lies to breathe." He paused. "You've always been good at discipline, Cole. Apply it here, be methodically petty. Win so cleanly that she has nothing left to spin." A plan took shape in my mind. Simple, direct. Step 1, get the documents. I filed a Freedom of Information Act request with the airport authority for the incident reports, my statement, the captain's log, the police record. These weren't opinions. They were facts carved into official paper. Step 2, craft the message. I opened my notes app, my thumbs steady now, and started typing. "Hello, my name is Cole. This is my service dog, Buck. We are the passengers from the video you've seen. There is false information being spread, so here are the facts." I laid it out in bullet points, each one simple, factual, unflinching. I purchased 2 seats, 14A for myself, 14B for Buck, my task-trained service animal. The passenger in 14C attempted to seat her child in 14B. She then claimed a severe allergy. The airline offered her an identical seat in row 18. She refused. She physically interfered with my service dog by grabbing his vest. She was removed. No anger, no insults, just truth. Step 3, go public. Not by shouting into the void, but by replying directly under the viral video already spreading. Put the facts where the lies lived. And one more thing, something small, something a little petty. I drafted a one-page PDF titled Respect the Vest, a simple guide to service animal etiquette. 3 bullet points: don't distract, don't touch, don't ask about the disability, clean, educational, easy to share. I looked at Buck. He blinked at me, tail thumping once as if to say, about time. I exhaled, the fury inside me settled into something sharper. Not revenge, not rage, but resolve. She had lied about my dog. She had tried to weaponize public sympathy to paint me as the villain. But I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to call names. I was going to bury her lies under a mountain of facts, so heavy they'd never crawl out again. And as I sat in my brother's driveway that night, Buck leaning against my knee, my phone glowing with the half-finished draft of my thread, I realized the story wasn't just about one flight anymore. It was about something bigger, about every service dog handler who'd ever been doubted, about every invisible disability questioned, about every person who'd been told to sit down and stay quiet. I wasn't going to stay quiet anymore. The world had seen her side. Now it was time for them to hear mine. When I finally hit post, my hands trembled, not from fear, from restraint. I had wanted to write fire, to rage, to tell the world exactly what I thought of a woman who grabbed my dog's vest and then went online to smear him as vicious. But my brother's words echoed in my ear, facts, not fire, win clean. So I kept it simple. Hello, my name is Cole. This is my service dog, Buck. We are the passengers from this video. There's a lot of false information being spread. Here are the facts. I listed them in neat bullet points. Screenshots of my boarding passes attached. A redacted credit card receipt showing 2 purchased seats. A link to the Department of Transportation's page on service animal regulations. No heat, no spin, just cold clarity. And then I dropped the PDF. Respect the Vest, a simple guide to service animal etiquette. Don't distract, don't touch, don't ask. I hit post, set the phone down, and exhaled. Buck stretched beside me on the couch, head heavy in my lap. His eyes closed slowly, unconcerned, as though he trusted me to handle the human mess. And maybe, for the first time since O'Hare, I did too. The first likes trickled in within minutes, then retweets, then shares, then quotes. The numbers climbed so fast my phone froze, vibrating non-stop on the coffee table. People didn't just read it, they passed it on. This is how you respond to lies. Clean, factual, devastating. Buck is a hero. Journalists began reaching out, at first just smaller blogs, then major outlets. Would you like to provide comment? Can we use your PDF in our story? Would you be available for an interview? I said no to most. I didn't want to become a talking head. The facts were enough. But the facts had power. 2 days later, the FOIA documents arrived. A fat PDF packet emailed straight from the airport authority. The incident report filed by the police. The captain's official log, Maria's crew notes. I opened them with shaky hands. Every word lined up with mine. Every fact matched. The log noted, passenger in 14C refused receipt offer, created operational delay, physically interfered with service animal. The police report, subject knowingly and willfully interfered with a service dog's equipment, violating federal aviation regulations. Maria's notes, passenger repeatedly obstructed aisle, non-compliant, escalated behavior. I uploaded the packet to my thread. No commentary, just, for transparency, here are the official reports. The effect was nuclear. Screenshots spread across the internet. News outlets updated their headlines. Karen's claims collapse under official reports. Service dog owner provides receipts, police back him up. Comment sections shifted. The same voices that had called Buck a menace now went quiet or turned. Even those inclined to defend a struggling mother found themselves cornered by facts they couldn't bend. Corinne's posts, once shared thousands of times, began to vanish. Screenshots of them still floated around, but her original pages were locked down, comments disabled, then deleted entirely. For me, it was vindication. But it didn't feel like victory, not really. Because while her lies were unraveling online, the words she'd written about Buck, about my partner, still burned in my mind. Look at the fangs, vicious animal. I glanced down at him, sprawled on the rug with his paws twitching in a dream, probably chasing phantom squirrels. He wasn't vicious. He wasn't even capable of aggression in the way she'd painted. He was steady, patient, gentle, everything I wasn't on my worst days. And she had tried to twist him into a monster. That stayed with me. Still, the tide had turned. For the first time in a week, I felt my shoulders unclench. Maybe the storm was ending. Maybe the truth had finally drowned the lies. But then the phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, local to Denver International. I answered anyway. "Mr. Mercer," a polite but firm female voice. "This is the airport administrative office. We've reviewed the incident reports regarding passenger interference on your flight." My pulse spiked. Buck lifted his head, sensing the shift. "Yes," I said cautiously. She continued, steady and official. "Given the seriousness of the violations, the authority is moving forward with a formal administrative hearing. The passenger in question, Ms. Stewart, will face fines and potential restrictions on future travel. We'd like you to attend and provide testimony." The words hit like a gavel. A hearing, not just online fallout, not just viral noise, a real-world consequence. I swallowed hard. "Of course I'll be there." She added, "The captain will also be asked to testify. And if possible, we'd like any expert testimony you can provide regarding the role of service animals." I looked down at Buck. His eyes met mine, calm, steady, unwavering. The storm wasn't over. It was just moving from the internet to a courtroom. And for the first time, I realized this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about precedent, about every handler who came after me, about proving that dignity, law, and truth mattered, even against the loudest lies. I stroked Buck's fur and nodded to no one but him. "We're not done yet, buddy." The week before the hearing felt longer than the flight itself. Every night I sat at my brother's dining table, piles of papers spread across the wood like maps before a battle. Boarding passes, receipts, FOIA documents, airline policy printouts, case law on service animal interference that Mark had pulled up on his laptop. And every night Buck lay at my feet, his head heavy on my boot, as if he knew his presence alone steadied me. Sometimes I caught myself whispering to him like a comrade in arms. "We're not just doing this for us, buddy. We're doing it for everyone who'll come after." He'd sigh, tail tapping once on the floor, as if to say, "Yeah, I know. Now quit talking and rub my ears." Mark was relentless in preparation. "They'll try to twist sympathy in her favor," he said one evening, sliding a legal pad toward me. "Mother with child versus veteran with dog. It's an easy frame unless we cut it down to facts." I nodded. Facts had carried us this far. They'd carry us the rest of the way. The night before the hearing, I called Captain Rios. "Cole," he said, his voice steady even over the phone line. "I've already told the board I'll testify. It's not optional for me. It's my duty." "You don't know what that means to me, Jack." "Don't thank me. Thank the regs. They keep people alive up there. You can't compromise safety at 30,000 feet. And then Maria, the lead attendant. She sounded tired, her voice softer, but no less certain. "I'll be there," she said. "I kept my notes for a reason. Too many times these things get swept under the rug, not this one." An expert joined us too, a woman named Dr. Patel, recommended by a veterans advocacy group. She had trained service dogs for over 20 years. She agreed to testify about what Buck was trained to do, how interference could destabilize him, how dangerous that was not just for me, but for everyone. Piece by piece the lineup formed. Not a mob, not an army, just steady, professional voices. The morning of the hearing, the air in Denver carried a chill. I wore a clean button-down, pressed slacks, shoes that hadn't seen dust in weeks. Mark handed me a binder so thick I felt like I was hauling bricks. Buck padded at my side, vest shining, movements precise, calm as ever. The administrative building was plain. Glass doors, metal detector, sterile walls that smelled faintly of disinfectant and coffee. We checked in with a clerk who didn't even look up when she said, "Mercer, party of 2, room 3B." Room 3B was rectangular, fluorescent lit, with a raised dais at the front where 3 board members sat behind nameplates. A court reporter clacked at a machine in the corner. Rows of chairs lined the back wall, a handful of observers murmuring quietly as they shuffled papers. We took our place at one table. Across from us, the other sat empty until the door opened. Karen entered. She looked smaller than she had on the plane. Her hair was pulled back tightly, her makeup heavy, her eyes darting quickly around the room. Her child wasn't with her. Instead, a lawyer carried her folder, his expression clipped, efficient. When her gaze landed on Buck, she froze, just for a second, her lips pressed tight, then she turned away. I felt Buck shift at my leg, sensing the tension. I pressed a hand against his shoulders. "Stay," I whispered. He relaxed, head on my foot. The board chair, a gray-haired man with wire glasses, tapped his gavel lightly. "We are convened in the matter of passenger interference on Flight 278, Chicago to Denver, dated August 14th. Parties are present. Counsel, you may begin." Karen's lawyer rose smoothly, already in motion. He painted her as a mother in distress, exhausted, overwhelmed, allergic, misunderstood. He framed me as rigid, unyielding, unwilling to show compassion. His words curled with practiced sympathy, the kind that seeks to sway hearts more than minds. I kept my jaw tight, facts not fire. When it was our turn, Mark rose. His voice carried the kind of calm authority only lawyers or chaplains can manage. He didn't posture, he didn't plead, he just walked the board through documents, one by one. Ticket receipts. Service animal regulations. FOIA reports. Captain's log. Police statement. Each slide clicked on the projector, neat and unembellished. The story told itself. When Captain Rios testified, the room stilled. His uniform gleamed, his posture straight, his words clipped with discipline. She was offered a receipt for her allergy claim. She refused. She blocked the aisle. She attempted to interfere physically with the service animal. At that point, she was a risk to the safety of every passenger on board. That is the only reason she was removed. No more, no less. Maria followed, her voice steady despite visible nerves. I have worked as a flight attendant for 15 years. I've seen conflicts. This one was different. She was non-compliant, aggressive, and endangered passengers by obstructing the aisle. I documented it in my report. And then Dr. Patel. She knelt briefly to greet Buck before turning to the board. Service dogs are not pets. They are medical equipment with a heartbeat. Interfering with their work can destabilize their training. In this case, grabbing the vest was equivalent to yanking a cane from a blind person mid-step. Dangerous, irresponsible, traumatizing. Karen shifted uncomfortably at that, her lawyer scribbling notes furiously. Finally, it was my turn. I stood, hand resting on Buck's vest. My throat tightened, but I forced air through it. I didn't want this. I didn't want the video, the headlines, the noise. I just wanted to travel with dignity. Buck isn't a symbol. He isn't a prop. He's my lifeline. When she touched his vest, she didn't just touch a dog. She touched my stability, my safety. And that's why I'm here. Silence filled the room, thick as fog. The chair nodded. Thank you, Mr. Mercer. He shuffled papers, then turned toward Karen. Ms. Stewart, he said evenly, you've heard the testimonies. Do you have a response? Her lawyer nudged her gently. She rose slowly, fingers twisting around each other. And for the first time since O'Hare, she looked uncertain. The confidence, the shrill defiance, the performance, it cracked. Her eyes darted, searching for a script that wasn't there. The chair leaned forward slightly, his voice cut clear. Did you, or did you not, place your hand on the service animal's vest? The room held its breath. Karen opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. And for the first time, she couldn't spin. The question hung like a blade above her head, and there was nowhere to run. For a long moment, Karen just stood there, twisting her fingers, mouth opening and closing like she was drowning on dry land. The board chair repeated, voice even but heavy with authority. Did you, or did you not, place your hand on the service animal's vest? Karen's throat bobbed. Finally she whispered, I don't remember. The room shifted. A low murmur rippled through the observers' chairs. Even her lawyer's jaw tightened. The chair didn't flinch. You don't remember, he said flatly. Let me remind you. He nodded, and on the projector, the grainy cell phone video flickered to life. The same video that had gone viral, the same frame that had circled the internet 1,000 times. There it was, her hand darting forward, fingers clutching the handle of Buck's vest, his startled yelp echoing through the cabin. The video froze, her hand still wrapped around the leather strap meant for stability, not violence. The chair's voice cut like glass. Is that you, Miss Stewart? Her eyes darted wildly. That angle, it's misleading. He startled my child, I was only. The chair leaned forward. Answer the question, is that you? She sagged. Yes, she whispered. Silence fell like a hammer. Her lawyer cleared his throat, scrambling to regain ground. If I may, the video lacks context. My client was in distress, suffering from an allergy, attempting to protect her child. But the board's second member, a woman with sharp eyes and a sharper voice, cut him off. She was offered a receipt, documented by both the captain and lead attendant. She refused, that is context. Her lawyer faltered. Karen's face reddened, anger bubbling up. I was suffering, no one believed me. I was just trying to keep my baby safe from that animal. Her voice cracked into a shrill note, echoing the same pitch I'd heard on the plane. It wasn't the voice of a victim. It was the voice of someone losing control. Mark rose calmly, binder in hand. If the board would look at page 72, Maria's incident notes confirm Ms. Stewart blocked the aisle to change her child rather than moving to the lavatory. Her behavior delayed departure by 19 minutes. The board chair adjusted his glasses. I see it. Maria sat quietly beside me, but I saw her lips tighten, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Karen's lawyer tried again, voice clipped. Surely compassion must factor in here. My client is a mother. She was exhausted, overwhelmed, alone. But the third board member, a younger man with a military bearing, interrupted. Compassion does not excuse interference with federal aviation safety regulations or assault on a service animal. Both are non-negotiable. The word assault seemed to suck the air from the room. Karen's head snapped up. Assault? I didn't assault anyone. That dog isn't even. She stopped herself, but the word lingered. I felt Buck shift against my leg, steady as ever, ears pricking at the change in my breathing. My hand found his vest strap, grounding myself. Mark stood again, calm as stone. The Department of Transportation defines interference with a service animal as an actionable offense. That's exactly what occurred here. The police report uses the same language. Words matter. The board members nodded slowly. The weight of evidence was no longer debatable. Karen slumped back into her chair, her lawyer's pen scratching furiously against his pad, though his expression said he knew it was futile. The chair cleared his throat. We've heard enough. He shuffled the papers in front of him, the sound loud in the stillness. He conferred briefly with the other two members, heads bent, voices low. The pause stretched, long and heavy. My pulse thundered in my ears. Finally, the gavel tapped once. The board finds that Ms. Stewart did willfully interfere with a service animal and obstruct airline operations in violation of federal aviation regulations. She is hereby fined $14,000 under administrative code. Furthermore, her eligibility to fly with commercial airlines will be restricted for a probationary period of 3 years, subject to review. This decision is final. The words landed like steel doors closing. Karen gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. You can't. 3 years. I have a child. I can't. But her lawyer placed a hand on her shoulder. whispering something I couldn't hear. She froze, her face crumbling as the reality settled. The chair turned to me. "Mr. Mercer, thank you for your cooperation. Your testimony was clear and valuable. This hearing is adjourned." The gavel tapped once more. And just like that, it was over. The room emptied slowly, murmurs following us into the hallway. Maria gave me a tired smile, squeezing my arm gently. "Take care of yourself, Cole, and take care of him." She bent briefly to scratch Buck's head. He leaned into it, tail wagging once. Captain Rios gave me a firm handshake. "Good flying with you, soldier, even if it was on the ground this time." His eyes softened just a fraction. "Stay steady." Dr. Patel lingered a moment, her voice warm. "He's a good dog, you're a good team. Don't ever let anyone make you feel smaller than that." I nodded, throat tight. Words failed me, but gratitude filled the space. Mark clapped me on the back as we stepped outside into the crisp Denver air. "You did it! We did it! It's over!" But as we walked down the courthouse steps, Buck trotting faithfully at my side, I realized something. Relief didn't feel like a victory lap. It felt like an exhale after holding my breath too long. My body was heavy with exhaustion. My heart carried the bruises of every accusation, every doubt, every time someone had looked at Buck like a fraud. And yet beneath the fatigue, a small ember glowed. Vindication. Not just for me, for him, for every handler who'd been doubted, dismissed, pushed aside. Buck leaned into my leg as we crossed the pavement. I ruffled his ears. "We did it, buddy." He sneezed, tail wagging, simple, uncomplicated, as if to say, "Told you so." We reached the bottom of the steps, and that's when the flash hit. A camera, a microphone shoved toward my face. A reporter, her hair immaculate, voice sharp. "Mr. Mercer, Cole, can we get a statement about today's ruling? Do you feel justice was served? And what's your response to Ms. Stewart's claim that she's the real victim here?" I froze. The gavel had fallen, the board had ruled, but outside these walls the story wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. The microphone hovered inches from my face, the red light blinking like a challenge. "Mr. Mercer, do you feel justice was served today?" the reporter asked, voice sharp, urgent. "What's your response to Ms. Stewart's claim that she's the real victim?" For a moment I froze. My instinct screamed to walk past, to shield Buck from the crowd, to keep my head down. I'd fought enough battles, why feed another storm? But then I felt him, Buck pressing against my leg, steady, unyielding. His brown eyes lifted toward me, calm as ever, anchoring me in the noise. And I realized something. Silence had protected me once. Silence had been survival. But now, silence would only leave room for her lies to breathe. So I squared my shoulders and leaned toward the microphone. "I don't think in terms of winners and losers," I said, my voice slow, deliberate. "I think in terms of truth. And the truth is simple. My service dog did his job. He stayed calm. He kept me grounded. And someone interfered with him in a way that was dangerous, not just for me, but for everyone on that plane. That's not about victimhood. That's about responsibility." The crowd of cameras clicked, shutters firing like a typewriter. I continued, softer now, but every word carrying weight. "People need to understand this. Service dogs are not pets. They're not luxuries. They're medical lifelines. When you touch the vest, you're not just grabbing fabric. You're grabbing someone's stability, their dignity, their safety. That's what happened to me. That's what this ruling recognized." I paused, let the silence settle. Buck yawned, leaned into my leg, completely unbothered. "And as for Ms. Stewart," I added finally, "I wish her no harm. I hope she learns from this. But I will not allow lies to go unanswered, especially lies that smear a dog who's only ever protected me." With that, I gave a nod, turned, and walked away. Buck trotted beside me, tail steady, as if leading me through the storm and out the other side. The questions still flew behind us, but I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Because within hours, the clip spread. Veteran delivers powerful statement outside courthouse. Respect the vest. Handler speaks after ruling. Calm words, strong truth. Service dog owner breaks silence. The footage of me speaking, calm, controlled, with Buck pressed faithfully at my side, circulated alongside the grainy plane videos. Two sides of the same story, chaos and calm, shrillness and steadiness. And the public chose. Comments flooded in. This man handled it with more grace than I ever could. That dog is a hero. She lied, he didn't even raise his voice. Karen tried to push back. Her lawyer released a statement claiming she'd been railroaded by an unfair process. A few sympathetic voices echoed her online, but their numbers dwindled quickly. Every time they shouted victim, someone else dropped the police report, the captain's log, or the video itself. Facts drowned the noise. And slowly, her narrative collapsed under its own weight. For me, life didn't return to normal overnight. Reporters camped outside my house for days. Advocacy groups reached out, asking if I'd speak at conferences, share Buck's story, use my voice to push for stronger protections. But I didn't want to be a symbol, not really. I wanted to be a man with his dog, walking quietly down a trail at sunrise, hearing nothing but the crunch of gravel and the wind in the trees. And yet, maybe I couldn't go back entirely. Because emails started trickling in, from other handlers, from veterans, from parents of kids with service animals. They wrote, "Thank you. I've been shoved out of restaurants. I've been doubted. I've been told my dog didn't belong. You spoke for us." That's when I realized it. The fight had been about me and Buck, but the victory, that belonged to all of us. One evening, weeks after the hearing, I sat on the porch with Buck at my feet. The sunset burned the sky orange, his fur catching the light like gold. He lifted his head, ears pricking at the sound of distant kids laughing, and I rubbed his chest, feeling his steady heartbeat under my hand. "Dignity doesn't always roar, huh?" I murmured. "Sometimes it just looks like you, sitting steady, holding the line." He licked my wrist, simple as ever, as if to say, exactly. I leaned back, exhaling deep. For the first time since that flight, my chest felt light. The noise had quieted, the lies had drowned, the truth had stood. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. The camera lights had gone, the reporters had moved on, but Buck was still here. My partner, my anchor, my proof that sometimes the strongest statement isn't anger. It's steadiness. It's calm. It's walking away from the storm with your head high, your dog at your side, and your dignity intact. You've heard this confession, now wait until you hear the next one. The truth that shatters everything you thought you knew.